r/TooAfraidToAsk. Lovable Jackass 4 says, why do Republicans believe that climate change is a hoax? Hickman 17 says, Republicans don't categorically believe it's a hoax. They tend to believe one or more of the following: climate change is happening, but the doom and gloom about rapidly accelerating timelines is overstated. Government overstate of disease, AIDS, COVID, and prior natural disasters, hurricane/earthquakes, projections of a global cooling not long ago, have undermined credibility with hyperbole and false alarms. Non-alarmist is the position, not denial. Climate change is happening, but we lack the technological means to get off of fossil fuels quickly. Nuclear is our best bridge. Anything we do in the United States doesn't matter, because India and China both have 4 times our population each. Nothing short of a Thanos-style culling is enough to seriously combat the problem. The proposed solutions to climate change seem to involve rural/agricultural people giving up their lifestyles and jobs and putting everything into urban infrastructure. So it costs liberals nearly nothing and mostly gives them what they want anyways. The fact that there is no plan to address rural needs, should this make it unsurprising they are not in favor of the proposed solutions. It's this group that is the most inclined to deny or asset liberal agenda. Honothing 13 says, wow, that last point really hits. I've always found it relatively easy to sympathize with people I disagree with politically, to a point, but that makes a lot of sense. Even if they do believe in the science, why would they sign on to an agenda that completely leaves them behind? Now Seattle says, change is expensive. Polluting and letting others clean up the mess is better for personal wealth. Hamhead says, most, not all, don't necessarily believe that there is no change. They believe that it isn't caused or impacted by man. Mratnabriggs says, I don't think they believe it's not real, some do. They just recognize that many on the left are using climate change as a finesse strategy, i.e. Al Gore. Climate change is big business. Slightoff1 says, because tons of the predictions we were supposed to radically change the economy to prevent ended up not happening. The hoax isn't climate change itself, it's the doomsday prophecies that the climate people push and the idea that we have to do everything liberals love: no trucks, mass public transit, less suburbs and rural living, etc. to save the world. A random walk in space says, it's convenient for them. Their donors make money polluting. Sayurame says, from my understanding, which depending on who I'm talking to can be anywhere from intelligent to underdeveloped, Republicans don't believe that climate change does not exist. Just that humanity is but a single contributing factor. As the planet as a whole had always had a fairly unstable climate. The rebuttal I hear is eco-friendly cars are environmentally horrid. Where steel engines can be melted down and reshaped or recycled into different tools, or what have you. Batteries from eco-friendly cars for the sake of basic human let alone planetary health can't be recycled or left to compost because they are made of lithium. I personally think climate change is helpful, but shouldn't be pushed on. Take solar panels for example. Every American home is always pushed to get solar panels. Here is the problem. Those only work in sunshine-filled regions. I live in a state where we get great sun, where I'm living specifically is perfect for solar panel installation. If I act quickly, no down payment, free next day installation, and I can use the money I save or get in return from the electric company. Can be put toward paying off my solar panels. Here is the problem, this house isn't mine. I rent it. It's also that I find a lot of Western activists whom feel about this often speak more about these topics than they listen. Asking them to put themselves in action usually results in them wanting their cake and eating it. Hamster Bang says, I've heard some Republicans say that, while it may be real, Jesus and God won't let anything bad happen to them. So, frick, the environment and you liberals. Fetishinge Economist says. Libertarian/Republican here. I do believe climate change happens. I do believe it may be impacted to some extent by humans. I do not believe, based on all the scientists I've heard discussing the issue, that there is anything to be alarmed about. Mostly though, from an economic standpoint, which is something I study and care about, I find certain attempts to move to different energies and ban current ones offensive because they discount human life for the sake of some iffy science. Brief explanation. Fossil fuels have quite literally made tons of humanity's progress and innovation possible. They are cheap, reliable, and plenty UPL. Moving to solar, wind, etc. seems like an enormously expensive and, to be honest, very inefficient undertaking that will harm poor and middle income people. Poor people around the world rely heavily on cheap, reliable petrol cars and motorcycles, often second-hand. They rely on cheap r/TooAfraidToAsk. Equivalent_ad_9066 says. If a gay/lesbian celebrity came out as bi/pan, or even straight, do you think there'll be controversy behind it and some backlash towards the celebrity? J_M_D says. There will be some dumbasses on Twitter mad about it, and then there will be some dumbasses saying look at these dumbasses. This is why we should imprison the gays. And then there will be gossip retweets about the controversy, and none of it will matter, and it could all be solved if people logged off and went outside. Crimin says. Thread over, best answer. IC_employment 8903 says. Yes. There's a few reasons why, as issues of sexuality and gender are very complex. The natural default of most people is straight. LGBT have had a rough go of it throughout history and has come quite a long way towards being accepted more universally, though obviously with a long way to go. So like any minority community, the LGBT community loves having people in positions of social influence because it allows society to actually see LGBT folks as normal. If a famous celebrity is openly gay, then why must I hide? Unfortunately, in your example, a formerly gay celebrity going more towards straightness can be controversial for several reasons. 1. Unfortunately, there's a lot of stigma against bisexuals in general, because being bisexual triggers that tribal in-group, out-group behavior. You have same-sex relations, so you must be totally gay but in denial. If you like the opposite gender, you're either oppressed or in denial. That is unfortunately how bisexuality itself gets viewed, and having sex with both just ends up putting you in the out-group category with both straight people and LGBT people. Because you generally have a relationship with one person, to many people you're either one or the other. Bisexual. Erasure itself is a thing. 2. One of the arguments of bigots against LGBT acceptance is that sexuality is a choice, so by a formerly gay celebrity going more towards straightness, it can be perceived as undermining the entire idea of LGBT acceptance. In other words, if this guy can go straight, why can't you? Anything that lends credence to this idea is a little scary, and so the knee-jerk reaction would be to criticize the celebrity for turning on the community. Caveat, I'm gay, but I'm not a spokesman for any part of the LGBT community. I also think sexuality is fluid, and if you change your direction midlife, then so be it. If you're a man that, dudes your whole life, but suddenly fell in love with a woman and became happily married, I think that should be perfectly acceptable. I also don't really care what a celebrity does, they're just another person, after all. But the shitty reality is that LGBT issues are still a very sensitive topic, and anything that muddies the waters is going to stir up at least a few people. Too long. Didn't read. You asked if it would generate controversy, but I never said it was justified. Ritakoa says. I definitely see the possibility. Captain but frick, says. Of course. LGBT people and their allies were sending death threats to streamers for playing a Harry Potter game. There would be tons of backlash if a gay celebrity came out as straight. 4i10 says, I mean, people are just gonna say mental disorders. Terrible quote 3561 says, some people might assume they were just pretending to be gay, but probably not really. Breadrum says, Miley Cyrus came out a bi. Then she became straight after meeting the right person. Backlash was huge. Heavy_metal_cowboy says, I think that's largely because that's just not how bisexuality works. I'm in a long-term head relationship with a man, but that doesn't mean if we broke up tomorrow I wouldn't still be interested in women. There's a solid chance she either A, is still bisexual and just made a fool of herself, B, came out as bi before doing enough soul searching, or C, the whole thing was for clout. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.